Ladies, start with our news headlines. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi inaugurates 1,300 greenhouses over 10,000 fedans in Mohammed Naguib military base. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli attends the signing of constitutional declaration in Sudan. And Iran tanker in limbo off Gibraltar as U.S. issues warrant. And now to the news in full. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi inaugurated today 1,300 greenhouses over 10,000 fedans as part of the second phase of the Mohammed Naguib sector for protected agriculture. The inauguration was attended by Parliament Speaker Ali Abdel Al, Defense Minister and Military Production Mohammed Zaki, and Presidential Advisor for National and Strategic Projects Sharif Ismail, as well as a number of ministers and state officials. During the inauguration, President al-Sisi said that the project is considered the second biggest agricultural greenhouse project in the world. On his part, presidential spokesman Ambassador Bassam Radi said that the project's production is equivalent to about 1 million fedans of traditional agriculture. Radi asserted that this project is the largest project of its kind in the field of greenhouse in the Middle East. The spokesman added that the project aims at contributing to food security maintenance and bridging the gap between production and consumption. Meanwhile, President al-Sisi made an inspected tour inside the greenhouses, listening to an explanation from the worker in the project concerning the agriculture steps. President al-Sisi also inaugurated a station for packaging the products that is produced by the project, in addition to a complex for seed production. President al-Sisi called for reducing the human element in the technical work inside the greenhouse. The greenhouse project is being implemented by the National Company for Protective Cultivations and the National Service Projects Organization. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi appointed Lieutenant General Osama Rabia as chairman of Suez Canal Authority. President al-Sisi also issued a presidential decree appointing Vice Admiral Mohab Mamish as presidential advisor for Suez Canal access projects and naval ports. Sudan's military council and protest leaders on Saturday signed a hard-won constitutional declaration that paves the way for a transition to civilian rule. The agreement was signed by Mohammed Hamdan Daglo, deputy chief of the military council, and Ahmed Arabia, representing the Alliance for Freedom and Change protest umbrella. The constitutional declaration builds on a political declaration that was agreed by the military and protesters on July 17th. It formalizes the creation of a transition administration that will be guided by an 11-member sovereign council comprised of 6 civilians and 5 military figures. On behalf of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli headed to Sudan today to participate in the signing ceremony of the Constitutional Declaration as Sudan celebrated a historic deal between Transitional Military Council and the opposition coalition of the Alliance for Freedom and Change for a transition to civilian rule, which many hope will bring increased freedom and prosperity. Madbouli conveyed greetings and congratulations of President al-Sisi, in addition to affirming Egypt's support for the aspirations of the Sudanese people and institutions to achieve progress and stability. Egyptian ambassador to Sudan, Hussam Isa, congratulated the Sudanese people for signing a hard-won constitutional declaration that paves the way for transition to civilian rule. He affirmed that the coming phase will witness support from Egypt to face any challenges. Isa described the celebration as historic and fulfills the Sudanese people's aspirations, adding that it comes in response to great sacrifices of the Sudanese people last month. The Egyptian ambassador pointed that Sudan in the coming phase will witness bilateral strategic projects in the fields of electricity and railways, as well as offering educational and cultural scholarships. Speaking on the sidelines of his participation in the ceremony of signing a hard-won constitutional declaration, the head of the Arab Parliament, Mish'al bin Fahm al-Salmi, called for lifting the name of Sudan from the list of countries supporting terrorism. He asserted that it is a historic moment that allows Sudan to be lifted from such sanctions supporting the Sudanese people in the new coming phase. An air bridge for returning pilgrims from the sacred lands to Cairo airport and other Egyptian airports continues. 70,000 pilgrims are due to arrive on board 424 flights. National airliner Egypt Air announced it will be operating 10 trips carrying about 2,000 pilgrims. It added that it will begin returning flights for Egyptian pilgrims whose trips are organized by the Ministry of Social Solidarity or the Interior Ministry's draw competition. Cairo International Airport has announced the state of emergency in preparation for receiving the Egyptian pilgrims who performed Hajj. A drone attack launched by Yemen's Houthi group on an oil field in eastern Saudi Arabia caused a limited fire at a gas plant but had no impact on oil production. A Houthi military spokesman said earlier today that the group had targeted the Shaiba oil field with 10 drones in what he said was the biggest attack in the depths of the kingdom. But a Saudi industry source told Reuters the attack most probably involved only 3 drones and caused no casualties. Israeli warplanes struck at least 3 targets in the Gaza Strip early today but caused no apparent casualties. A Palestinian security source said that the strikes had a Hamas observation post in Beit Hanun in the northern Gaza Strip. Earlier Friday, the Palestinian Health Ministry said that 32 Palestinians were wounded by Israeli live fire during weekly protests along the Gaza border. Regime airstrikes killed a woman and 6 of her children in northwest Syria a day after Russian bombardment pummeled a nearby displacement camp. The Britain-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said that the airstrike hit the family's 1-story home in the village of Deir Sharqi in Idlib province, killing everyone inside. The latest airstrikes on the village of Deir Sharqi wounded 3 other people. The attack came a day after Russian air raids killed 15 civilians, including 6 children in a nearby displacement camp in the town of Has. 2 other children were killed by Syrian regime airstrikes in different parts of southern Idlib yesterday. Turkish Defense Minister Hulusi Akar said that a joint Turkish-U.S. operation center to establish and manage a safe zone in northeast Syria will be fully operational next week. Turkey and the United States agreed last week to set up the joint operation center for the proposed zone along Syria's northeast border, but gave few details such as the size of the zone itself or the command structure of forces that would operate there. Earlier this week, a U.S. delegation visited southern Turkey to work on getting the center started, and Turkish drones began carrying out work in the area where the safe zone will be created. A last-minute U.S. warrant to seize an Iranian tanker preparing to leave Gibraltar after weeks of detention cast out over its departure today, prolonging a diplomatic spat between Tehran, London and Washington. The U.S. Justice Department alleged the ship was part of a scheme to unlawfully access the U.S. financial system to support illicit shipments to Syria from Iran by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which Washington has designated a foreign terrorist organization. There was no immediate comment from Britain or Gibraltar, its overseas territory, over whether they would act on the warrant. India and Pakistan exchanged heavy cross-border fire today after New Delhi's move to strip the restive Kashmir region of its autonomy prompted a rare meeting of the UN Security Council. The two foes regularly fire pot shots over the line of control (LOC) in the disputed Himalayan territory, which is divided between the two countries and poisoned their relations since independence in 1947. However, yesterday UN Security Council met behind closed doors at the request of China and Pakistan to discuss the issue. India's UN ambassador said the decision over Kashmir's status was an internal matter and that the country was committed to ensuring the situation remained calm and peaceful. China proposed that the Security Council issue a statement on the situation in Kashmir, but diplomats said the United States, France and Germany objected in a victory for India. US President Donald Trump talked by phone with Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan and urged that Pakistan engage with India to defuse tensions in the flashpoint region of Kashmir. The White House said that Trump conveyed the importance of India and Pakistan reducing tensions through bilateral dialogue regarding the situation in Jammu and Kashmir. Khan visited the White House last month, and the contacts come as the United States is apparently closing in a possible peace deal with the Taliban in Afghanistan. However, tension over Kashmir between nuclear-armed Pakistan and India is throwing the region onto new danger. Thousands of Hong Kongers, including many teachers, took part in more anti-government rallies today, braving thunderstorms to march past shops shuttered due to growing concern that police could adopt tougher tactics to drive activists from the streets. Following an escalation in violence over the past few days, the rallies this weekend are a key test of whether the protest movement can retain the broad support that it has appeared to enjoy. The protests began as opposition to a now suspended extradition bill, but have since grown to include broader demands. Demonstrators say they are fighting the erosion of the one country, two systems arrangement that enshrined some autonomy for Hong Kong since China took it back from Britain in 1997. Police have shown fiercer determination to clear the streets. The Ministry of Finance announced that the government intensifies effort to encourage investments and increasing economic growth rate to achieve comprehensive and sustainable development. The ministry noted that the government has drawn up a comprehensive plan to reduce the unemployment through providing many job opportunities for youth. It also added that the government has allocated additional spending to activate the industrial sector, which is considered a main pillar in the country's economy. The Ministry of Finance pledged to continue the pre-adopted economic reforms, which have positively affected the economy and were also hailed by international financial and economic institutions. German finance minister said after meeting his British counterpart Sayed Javid that the European Union is united and ready for all scenarios related to Britain's planned departure from the bloc. Meanwhile, Javid said that Britain would be ready on October 31st for a no-deal Brexit if that was unavoidable. In another development, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said he may hold talks in Paris on Brexit with French President Emmanuel Macron ahead of next week's G7 summit. The Johnson government said it is determined to take Britain out of the European Union by October 31st, whether or not it can renegotiate an exit deal with the EU. Ratings agencies Fitch and Standard & Poor's downgraded Argentina's sovereign debt rating, flagging higher chances of a default in the wake of a shock primary election result that plunged the country into its latest economic crisis. The downgrades cap a tough week in which the peso lost nearly 20% of its value, forcing the central bank to eat onto its reserves with dollar auctions. Fitch downgraded Argentina's sovereign debt rating from B to CCC, while S&P lowered its rating to B- from B. Fitch said it expected Argentina's economy to contract 2.5% in 2019, down from a previous forecast of 1.7%.